Okay, good morning, everybody. I do appreciate also it is a Monday morning at 10 a.m. So people are either slow to come in or checking their emails, etc. So we may have people join us, so that we'll crack on so as not to overrun. We're hoping that this shouldn't take too long today, but this is the final pre-tender engagement webinar for the Multi-Disciplinary Consultancy Framework. So that's the MDC framework, which is how we'll refer to it. Thank you so much for your input in the first webinar that we hosted some time before Christmas now. The purpose of this event is for us to demonstrate where we've taken on board some of your feedback and how we propose the final framework to look, and then answer any questions that you may have ahead of the contract notice being sent and published within February. Most of you will have met me before. I'm Jennifer Castle. I'm the Regional Manager for London and the South East. We're joined again by Shona Snow, who's running the procurement for this activity. So just as a reminder, this is the Multidisciplinary Consultancy Framework. I understand we have a lot of frameworks being procured at the moment, but this is the London and South East MDC1 framework. And to fill you in, if you weren't here beforehand, the objective of this framework is to offer a full range of consultancy services. So you'll see from the disciplines later that we'll have architects, but there'll also be clerk of works and employer's agent, etc. So you'll see that coming through. So it's a framework which encompasses a full range of consultancy, not just one specialism. Hopefully you'll know by now that at LHC, our purpose is to deliver better buildings and homes that enhance local communities, and that's very much at the heart of our designing of this framework. We're working backwards. We've done some very extensive work based on what we believe our communities require and what clients are looking for, and hopefully that will be evident through the composition of this framework. One of those objectives is to attract a range of organisations on this. So there is space for all kinds of companies. We're hoping that we're not going to have a framework which has the same names and only the same names that you see on other frameworks, which tend to be the slightly larger, more established businesses. So our our process demonstrates how we're looking to onboard micro all the way through to large organisations. We're particularly interested with attracting businesses on a diverse leadership and employee makeup, and also hearing about how the companies appointed to the framework are looking to address EDI and how that affects their business going forward. And what we've been really trying to do is approach this in a way that removes any of the barriers. So if you see this when we're presenting it to you and you think, I'm not sure about that, that's a barrier to me. Some of those are in place because they need to be, but if you really think that they're a problem, then do let us know, because after this then we won't be able to make too many amendments. So there's a quote there from the Mayor of London. As we say, this is a London and South East framework from the London and South East team at the moment. If we tick over to the next slide. The opportunities from the consultancy world, as it were, looking forward. We just wanted to put this up there to demonstrate how worthwhile it is for you to go through this bidding process. Not only for opportunities that we'll bring to you, but particularly if you're an inexperienced micro SME, use the support you've got from us as a learning curve to try and demonstrate, to try and support you so that we can demonstrate that we can get different companies onto these frameworks. Some of these here, like ADS 1.1, we're in procuring at the moment. That's an architect specific framework. That's live at the moment. London only. We are in the act of procuring that now. So that's London only. There is an architect work stream within this framework, which covers the southeast only, because there is a provision for that, and there's a gap in the market for it, particularly within our product range. And you'll see here, we've got the MDC London and southeast, which will coincide with the MDC CPC, which is our Northern Division framework, which we'll feed that back in a little bit later on, how the mechanism of the two working together will play out. Those are for OJUs. You'll see, I'll come back to the talent pool, but you'll see, you know, we've got the GLA ADUP framework. Again, that's architect focused, but there are lots of other frameworks that do consultancy work. And in terms of what we do, we re-procure it at the end of it as a success. So you'll see the length of this. Once that time is over, we'll re-procure it. So it's really beneficial. We know that it's arduous getting onto some of these things sometimes, but it's really beneficial for you to take the time to look into this as the opportunities that come through. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Shona now, who'll talk through the whole framework. The one thing I didn't say is use the Q&A function at the bottom to submit your questions. Please do questions through the Q&A. Use the chat if you want to comment and say, you know, mention some things that we're talking about, or talk amongst yourselves about it. But the Q&A function will be picking up as we go, but also answering some of them at the end. So please do use that. Okay, right, hand to you, Shona.
Morning, everyone. Right, so this list of work streams here, if you've attended our previous webinar, the previous one was on the 6th of October, you might recognize the list and notice that we've expanded it. So we were requested to separate out principal designer, so we've now done that. And we have also separated out civil engineer based on feedback. So, so those are 2 new work streams. That makes a total of 12. Contract and administration is an optional additional service, as is landscape architecture. So you don't have to provide it in order to apply and get appointed onto the framework. But if you do provide it, obviously that's an additional service you can be contracted for. So just to run through some of the highlights about the framework, it will run for up to 6 years. So we have the option to extend it to a maximum term of 6, just recognizing that there have been a lot of delays with local authorities and other organizations. You can apply for up to 3 disciplines and up to 2 value bands. If you do decide you want to go for the multidisciplinary lot 12, you can't then apply for the others, and vice versa. We are trying to design it to attract micro SMEs and SMEs, which is why we have the 3 value bands. So this is a good way of ensuring that we can capture the micro SME market. Just to know, as we said, this architect lot here, this work stream is London only, just to re-emphasize, southeast only, yeah. Just to reiterate that. So we already have an architect framework that's for London. So the ADS 1.1 is the expansion to the ADS 1. That's London. This MDC framework, workstream 1, is to fill in the gap, which is in the southeast. So that's southeast only, that lot. We'll be looking at the bidder's capacity to deliver the contract size in the value band that you select. So we wouldn't exclude based on turnover alone. So we have some turnover guidelines, but they wouldn't be the sole basis for exclusion. We're looking at your business model, which could be unique, and we are trying to be more, we've designed it to be more open-minded about what your business model could be. Having spoken to some of you, I had some meetings with some of you and learning how your different business models work. So on that basis, consortiums and partnerships are very welcome. Directors' references are welcome. So if you want to utilize work that you as the director of your own new company might have performed in a previous company, that is completely acceptable. And we will be specifically evaluating your organizational EDI, equality, diversity and inclusion. This is a very important aspect of the tender, and we consider it to be a technical skill. not just in architecture. I mean, it's very easy to see how it applies in architecture, because it's about being able to relate to local communities and your company reflecting local communities and their diversity, but actually it really applies to any profession. So as I said, the optional services, if you do decide you want to offer those, you just need to evidence that you have the experience and qualification. Pricing, I will come back to in a few slides, but we've decided, again, based on feedback from the market, that we will go for a deviation from the mean evaluation approach. And there are a new set of social value KPIs which will be monitored through the framework. And just an overview of the criteria, so and the turnover thresholds and so on. So you can see here, these are the 3 value bands. We've got up to 5 million, 5 to 10, and 10 plus. So your guidelines for turnover, so you can see here 500,000, 1 million, and 1 million plus. And some of the common criteria, so you have the standard credit check and financial accounts. Obviously, we need to look at your qualifications, your experience, which would normally be through a case study, and your capacity. So some of you have, good networks or partnership arrangements. That's what you would need to demonstrate in capacity, or how you're resourced to deliver the contract of the size that you choose here. Obviously, basic insurance needs to be in place, and the client at call off will decide whether it needs to be more than 2 million, but 2 million is normally the minimum. And in terms of numbers, we're thinking around 7 appointments per value band to ensure that there is sufficient competition for each, for the client at point of call off. So that would be a total of around 216. So just to explain the EDI approach, if you've attended previous sessions, you might have heard us talk about EDI before, but it's a really big priority for us at the moment. So we want to see evidence of how you recruit and retain and promote inclusively. And we want to understand if you actually have a really diverse leadership model and your employees are really diverse, we want to understand that, and how maybe you work to reduce inequalities in your profession. Perhaps you do a lot of collaboration with minority-led firms, or do a lot of community engagement. So it's not just about producing an equality, diversity, inclusion policy. So we're more interested in the evidence and what you actually do, what you have achieved.
Just to clarify, this is going to be, one of the scored questions. So there'll be a question that's in there. There will be weighting against it. So just answer the question and evidence it as the best you can.
It's very important for us at the moment. So I mentioned price. Now, in our pricing schedule, we will ask for daily rates, hourly rates, and we will provide a scenario so we can see how that looks in a typical project. Now, normally, price valuation is something that's just done based on best price. So it's usually just a formula. So the way it works is the lowest bid normally gets 100% of the marks that are available. Usually it's 30%. So 30% price, 70% quality. And then every other bid is indexed against that lowest bid. So with a 30-70 lowest price quality rate weighting, normally the lowest bid doesn't get the overall highest rank because you're combining the price and the quality. But sometimes it can influence the final result. And this is what we've had feedback about, that it kind of encourages, even with only 30% on price, even then it's felt that it encourages a race to the bottom. So we've looked at another approach known as deviation from mean based on feedback. And we think, particularly in light of the fact that we want to attract micro SMEs, who we recognize they really do often offer a very valuable, very dedicated, kind of bespoke and expert service. We think this is a good way to evaluate price. So what it means is the average price in a range of bids gets full marks, and then depending on how far away you are from that average bid, the number of marks available goes down. So the furthest from it, up or down, gets the least marks. So details on that and how it's calculated will be provided in the tender documentation, because obviously we will be open and transparent about everything. But anything that is abnormally low or even unusually high, we would normally come back and question. So in terms of timescales, so we've been in pre-tender engagement. This is a big framework for us. So we've spent a lot of time on market engagement. So this is our final pre-tender engagement webinar before we publish in mid-February. So be around that kind of time, 17th to the 19th. Then we would normally, the minimum time frame for publishing is 30 days, but we've scheduled 5 weeks on this occasion. So evaluation of the SQs, that's the shortlisting stage. You'd find out if you're successfully shortlisted through the portal, you get sent a notification. Then the ITT stage, the second stage, if you're shortlisted, you get invited to that. That's early July. And the deadline for that is 30 days later. And then the framework is currently planned to commence by the end of December. So that's following all the internal governments, contracting process and so on. So if you've attended other sessions, similar sessions that we've done, we've done some workshops based on the principles of public procurement, how frameworks work and so on. So I'm not going to go through all of that today, but I am going to do a very brief summary of it. So just to touch, we often get asked about Brexit, for instance. So just to touch briefly on that. So what has changed since New Year's Eve? What's changed is the main thing is we no longer publicise procurement opportunities across the European Union. So instead, we use now a UK database. In fact, for some procurements, we're publishing both at the same time. But for anything new, we're publishing on a UK database, Find a Tender. So other than that, all the principles actually stay the same. So although, yes, the public contract regulations are now slightly amended, generally speaking, the only amendments that were made was where it said Europe, it now says UK. So it's really minimal amendments. They are currently, Cabinet Office are consulting on the new legislation, but that will still take a little bit longer to be developed and then pass through Parliament. So the principles, even then, will still apply. Equality of treatment between bidders. So we have to take the information you provide to us at face value, and we have to design the process to be open and transparent. It has to be clear to you how we're awarding, what our award criteria is. And just to also clarify, so the way this framework will work is the same as it always has. It's based on the current regulations. So it's an agreement that governs how future contracts will be awarded. It's a way of vetting suppliers. We can have any number of suppliers, but we can't then reopen the framework once it's established. And clients that want to use the framework can then do so following a direct award process or a mini competition. So it's not the framework itself is not a contract for work. And the framework itself is not a guarantee for work. So this is why it's quite an important business decision for you to make, especially, the smaller businesses. So it is an investment of time. We can't guarantee work because our job is to promote it, and your job as well, if you're on it, to promote it to clients, to access it. But we can't guarantee that you would be awarded work through it. So it can be very good for your reputation, can help enhance your reputation. There's other benefits to it, giving you access to a lot of suppliers through one route. Now that isn't going. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to pipe in a little bit there and say, those of you that aren't familiar with LHC as well, this is one of 25 frameworks that we offer, but we have dedicated client support teams which promote them. Within our region alone, we have over 100 active clients at any time. We've got around 360 active projects across those frameworks. We are active within the public procurement realm. So absolutely not a guarantee of work, but we won't have existed this long if they didn't get used. So just to clarify, that is our job, and that is one of the advantages of you partnering with us to come onto this framework.
Thanks. Okay, so the process for getting onto a framework, So this is the pre-tender engagement. So this will involve events like this. So this is the tender process itself. This is always done through a portal like Proactus. Different public sector bodies use different portals. So you have the selection questionnaire and then the forward-looking ITT, and then you have your appointments to the framework, which are made through letters that are issued through the portal. So I will just skim through this because some of you will have seen it before if you've attended previous sessions. This is just how it's called off. So the framework agreement is between LHC and the successful bidder, but the client authority calls off from the framework, and that's where it becomes a legally binding contract. And then also, if you're not familiar with how the call-off process works, there are 3 stages to it. So there's the EOI stage, the expression of interest stage, which is simply, it's a project registration form that the client completes. And then LHC send it to all the suppliers on that framework, or the relevant ones. They decide if they are in a position to bid, and then it goes to a full mini competition, and then the winning bidder, following some internal governance on the client's part, will be awarded the contract. So just following on from what I was saying about the benefits of working with LHC. So why would there be a need for framework agreements? So in theory, I mean, well, in reality, local government and other public sector bodies can and do set up their own frameworks. But actually, they still need framework providers like ourselves, because they will all have varying resources or degrees of expertise. Sometimes they have time pressures on them. They need a speedy route to market. They need to know that they can access a list of suppliers that they know are pre-vetted, that they can trust, that have already provided the necessary evidence that they are experienced and capable. So yeah, trusted suppliers. They want to know it's a compliant route, legal route to market. They approach us for our expertise as well, additional resource and support. They know that we will collaborate with them if they want us to, and it gives them speed to market. So that's from the public sector's point of view. From the consultants or contractors' point of view, it gives them access to many, many different clients through one organisation. So you can apply to be on a framework, and any number of hundreds of public sector bodies could use it. So it's less administration for you. And one point of contact, we would also provide you with business development support, and it can enhance your reputation to be able to say, I was able to get through this tender process and I was deemed to be good enough to work for public sector clients. So I have also shared typical pitfalls and common mistakes in previous slides. So I won't read through all of these, but I do have some new content today based on current tender process that we're undertaking that's currently live, and also some other ones done in the last few years. So what I've found is that there are quite often some common clarification questions during the tender process. So I've done a summary of them. So please, when we send these slides out, do read these if you haven't seen them before. There's some good tips in there. But here are some common questions during tender processes. So we often get asked, which documents am I supposed to be returning? Now, I can understand this. If you're new to it, it's probably a lot of documentation to get through. So normally there is a response document provided. So there's an SQ document, supply questionnaire document, that contains the full guidance and the instructions. It's a legal document actually, but it explains to you the whole process, how we are evaluating, what we were evaluating, how price is evaluated, and how we will shortlist. Sorry, not price, how our financial due diligence is done. Then there is also usually a response document, which you must complete in return. So I prefer to work that way. And then in that response document is usually a document checklist. So that response document will be quite big because it's got a lot of various things that you need to fill in. There will usually be a document checklist as well. So we often get the question, am I eligible for this particular work stream? Can I apply for that particular discipline? So if you want to check whether you meet the criteria, you probably want to go first to the specification document. So there is information in the SQ document that will inform you around that, but also in the specification. So that's where we list the qualifications and other requirements. We get a lot of questions around consortium bids, and I'm going to provide some additional information actually following the call today. I will send out the government PPN, so procurement notice, around consortiums and how to evaluate them. But we often get asked as well, can I bid as a consortium with a number of other partners and as my own company on my own? And the answer is yes, you can. Can I bid if I'm already on another framework? Yes, you can. That's fine. There is we can't preclude you on that basis. We also have a supplier diversity monitoring form. So we now send that out with every tender process. And there's a series of set questions. So one of them asks, are you more than 50% BAME led? So it's a free text box. So if you don't fit the question, just type in the free text cell whatever information, but very briefly, that you think is helpful for us to be aware of. Do you need to provide pricing? So if we're talking about a two-stage procurement, an SQ and an ITT, so in the shortlisting stage, no, you don't need to provide price. But the reason that we give you the pricing schedule is because by law, we have to provide everything up front. We ask for 2 references, so that's part of the standard questionnaire. Can you provide more? So if we ask for 2, please just provide 2. If when we're evaluating, we realize we need more information, we will always come back to you. Where we ask for 1 case study, sometimes we ask, can I provide more? No, we can't, because we have to treat everybody the same. So if we've asked for 1, we can only evaluate 1. Sometimes we ask for 2, but please read the SQ document and it'll be clear. So again, some tips, but the main one being read all tender information carefully. So I'd say 50% of the answers are usually in there. Based on the clarifications we get. Obviously, it's absolutely fine to send clarifications through, but half of the time the answers are normally in there. The other half of the time, yeah, it's no problem at all. I usually receive clarifications through the portal. It has to be through the portal once the tender has been published, but I usually respond really promptly. So I check them and send out a list of all clarifications we've received, normally daily, if they're coming in often enough. So yeah, just watch out for errors. If you're normally working on your own, or if you're a really small organization, please do put systems in place to avoid mistakes. So it could be accessing partners, networks, other support in other form. So you're welcome to submit questions now via the Q&A tool, because once we do publish the tender, any queries at that point must go through the portal, unless it's a technical problem, which is different. But any queries to do with the tender have to go through the portal, and they will then be shared with all the bidders. So if you're not registered on ProContract, please do so. It's a very simple registration process. And if you are on our mailing list already, we normally send an email out as well to let you know that the tender is live. So there, yeah.
That's today. Okay, great. Is this Q&A now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we have had a couple of questions come through, and most of them I think I can answer. There's a statement here that says 3 disciplines plus CA, please, contract administrator, please. And just to explain how that is. So we are not putting contract administrator as a separate discipline. We did go to market, ask some clients, and actually the feedback was it's normally given as part of another discipline. So the way that it works at the moment is, if you are applying for a discipline that also has contract administrator, which is all of them, isn't it, Shona? All of them has it as an optional there.
All of them have it, because what we understood was that it's very rare that anyone doesn't offer it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's something that you can offer as part of that discipline. So it will be provided to you as it will be provided to the client as an option if they want it as part of their program or as part of their tender, but it's not always necessarily going to be the case.
Yeah.
And that does bring me on to another question, the other question here, unless you want to add in before.
No, that's fine.
So here it says, with the optional extra of offering landscape design and CA role to the architecture lot or the other lots, will adding the extra have any bearing on your scoring? Will it be seen as a benefit to offer this service? And the answer is no. So it's not scored, so it's not going to add to your overall ranking and your overall value for money, but we will be asking you to demonstrate that you are capable of it, so that if a call off came, we have confidence that the companies on there are able to fulfill it. By not offering it, what it means is, if a client comes to us and says, I'm using the architecture lot, I also want them to take a contract administrator role, when we run the expression of interest, it will go to those that can do both. So if you haven't done that, then you won't, it will come clear in the expression of interest that is an option there, and then that person will not be able to bid for that work, because it's obviously something that they need to be capable of. So the benefit of it is that it opens up, if there is a requirement for it, opens up your opportunity to deliver the work, but it won't be seen as any kind of ranking fundamental scoring benefit, if that makes sense. Yeah, is that clear, Shona?
Yeah, agreed. What's this about London based?
It says, how does it work if I'm London based and want to use lot 12? So my question I'm unclear on that question, because it's what you mean by use. Are you a client? This is mainly aimed at suppliers. It's fine if you're a client on here, but if you want to use the framework, then that's fine. You can use it. Use this framework for lot 12 for multidisciplinary, because it's going to be London and the South East. If you are London based, and you want to apply for the framework, that's also fine, because we'll be evaluating your capability to deliver within the area, not your location. Yeah. So London and the South East.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you're located. You could be located anywhere in the UK.
Yeah, I hope that answers your question, but please let me know.
So the question about 50%. So for the multi-dis lot, does the lead consultant still need to provide 50% of the discipline themselves? So we did say that last time, but we've decided to take that out now, because there was a lot of concern about that being too restrictive.
Yes, but obviously when we're asking for your methodology, we'll be that's when we're looking at your case study and your methodology, if it's very apparent that you're subcontracting basically everything and the whole contract, and unless you've got very robust subcontractor processes in place, that will inevitably affect your score.
Yeah, this is true. So we still evaluate the business model. Yeah, how it's going to operate.
Exactly. So we're not mandating it so that it's 50% yourself, but at all. But as we say, it all depends on how you would manage that contract if it wasn't done in-house. If you offer the landscape design extra to the architecture lot, can it be a partnership subcontractor to a landscape consultant you work with? Would this be deemed as a consortium or a subcon? For the optional extra, subcons are okay, aren't
they? Sounds like subcon. Yeah. Subcontracting is fine, as long as you explain in your answer. That's how you would deliver it.
Yeah, it sounds like a subcon. A consortium is when you create another organisation with another company. So you and another comes together and you're putting your skills and then you're bidding as one. But that's fine. But if you're putting it as a subcon, then that's also not a problem for this. Are any of the lots suited to urban design and master planning stages 0 to 2? Thank you. It's included in architecture.
But lot 1 being specifically architecture, we would be looking for evidence for 0 to 6, stages 0 to 6. The case studies will ask for built case studies.
For this one. So yes, in our ADS framework, this is what we mean about it being slightly different to the architect design services framework, because that goes into a bit more detail for it. We would expect 0 to 6 in this one. In the other framework, we took out master planning and urban design as a separate work stream, so that companies that only did 0 to 2, they could put that in there, but this one won't be covering that, as I understand it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all of the answered questions. Anybody have anything else? Just checking through, make sure that we're all good.
There's our contact details if anybody needs them.
Yes, so as Shona said, we've got, is it the 18th that the contract notice is being released?
It'd be around then, yeah.
Yeah,
give or
around the
take a
18th
few
of
days.
February. Feel free to contact us beforehand. Tim is technical support here, so anything that feeds into the technical specs that you want to check on or any questions, then
we've got a couple more questions. Might be a good idea to answer now, actually.
Oh,
yeah, the CPC framework, that's probably a good one to clarify, actually.
It is, yes. Okay, but we don't have a complete answer to it yet, is the only reason that I'm sort of evading it slightly. We've got one of two scenarios with the CPC framework, so I'm just going to be really transparent. When we first set out on this, and actually up until last week, up until the last few working days, we had seen this as two completely separate frameworks. So we'd be running this in London and the South East, and then CPC will be running this for Northern England. And the reason that we did that was to allow for real specific specifications and criteria to come out of those regions, because we've done a lot of client and stakeholder engagement here, which have very strong views, and they might change depending on where you are in the country, and early indicators say that is often the case. However, with consultancy, we think that shift is minimal. So actually, we may see there an opportunity to run this as one procurement, but with two different regional lots, or however many regional lots, but there'll be the opportunity for you to bid in the north and in the south.
Anything like that, I know it might need further clarification, so please bear with us. If it does turn out that it's one framework and it's a little bit more complexity to it, we will provide further clarification.
We will do, and we'll release some guidelines. Just to be clear, if we run it that way, there are some efficiencies, because most of the questions will be the same. So, you know, it's like a single application where we don't ask you to do it twice. But then, for example, if we're looking for a case, it might be case study. Don't take this like a verbatim right now, because it might change, but you know, it might be that we'll ask you to apply your methodology in a particular area in the north or in a particular area in the south, if we run it as one. So we're still working on that slightly. The two will be running, the opportunity for the north and the south will exist. We're just working out, and we have a meeting tomorrow to completely thrash out how that's going to work in practice. So hopefully that answers that question. Just a very quick one here. Did you say the Architects London framework is already in place? Yes, it is. So there's no opportunity to add to that at the moment. We're running the expansion at the moment, but to be honest, if you've not started to apply for it now, I wouldn't encourage it, because it's back next week. It's
anyway. Not much time left.
No,
yeah,
exactly. So we've got one architect framework in place, and then we're running an expansion. That's being procured, but I wouldn't recommend.
Deadline is the 25th.
Yeah, looking at that at the moment. No questions, an ignorant question at all. Let's have a look. So, is it possible to bid for one discipline, or does the submission have to be multidisciplinary? Nope, one discipline is fine. You can apply for up to 3 disciplines or multidisciplinary, but that's up to 3. If you're only interested in, you know, employer's agent, just go for the employer's agent. That's absolutely fine. Good question.
Should we answer? Yeah, it is a good question. Shall we answer the landscape designer question? So I think the question is, can I have more than one subcontractor as my landscape designers? Because it might depend on the project. Yeah, I don't see any issues with that. Yeah,
but again, when you demonstrate that, then you need to make that clear and demonstrate how you look after your subcontracting. Has the London framework architecture been procured? Yes, it has. Thanks for your compliments on our presentation. It's the last comment that's in there. Any more questions?
That looks like it, I think. Yeah,
that looks it. I'm just doing a bit of admin just to make sure. Like I say, do get in touch if you've got anything else that we've missed out. We will. I'm sorry for not being able to give you a straight answer on the CPC, but like I say, it's only emerged over the last couple of days. What it basically means for you is that you're either going to do 2 submissions where you're copying some, or it's 1 submission with some nuances that change. So we'll provide some guidance on that as and when we've got that absolutely buttoned down, to make sure that we're not. What we don't want to do is disadvantage, by running it as one, disadvantage either region by not being able to put specific criteria in place, because that's very important to our regional hub strategy. I think that we can probably closely align it into one, but we just need to figure that out. Anyway, happy Monday. Have a good week. Blimey, it's Monday. Have a good week. Oh gosh, wishing the week away. And yeah, we look forward to seeing your submissions, and yeah, get in touch and we'll speak to you soon. Thanks very much, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.